more of 25 Wild Christmas Review Days. It's the eve. It's the eve of Christmas. We made it. Of course, I got one more day though, so I don't know. It's just the holidays. They're coming. It's got the excitement inside of me. I feel like a kid sometimes. Tonight for the video for Christmas Eve, the second to last video for this project, I'm going to touch upon a film that is long overdue. I've been hinting at it multiple times, it being one of my favorite holiday films to watch. And the specific reason why I'm touching upon it now and not earlier in the project is because it's kind of become a tradition for me to watch this film every Christmas Eve night before I go to bed. It's the last thing that I watch. Okay, well that's kind of a lie, but it's the main thing that I'm making a point to watch. I end up watching whatever's on TV afterwards, but usually I watch this film on Christmas Eve night, sometimes before I go to bed. Hey, let's talk about Elf. Released in 2003, Elf focuses on a man named Buddy. Although his name wasn't originally Buddy, he was given the name Buddy by all the elves. As a young baby, Buddy grew up in one of those orphanage houses. And on Christmas Eve night when Santa came around, Buddy ended up crawling into his bag and was accidentally brought back to the North Pole. Rather than do something about it by trying to locate his proper parents, the elves decide to take him up as one of their own and training him to be an actual elf. As the years go on though, Buddy realizes due to his clumsiness that something isn't exactly right. Not only because he's taller than all the other elves, but he just can't seem to do anything right, whether it's making toys or just doing basic everyday things that elves can do. It isn't until he overhears some of the elves talking that he discovers that he's not actually an elf, but instead a normal human, and he was put up for adoption at a very young age. Taking all this in, Buddy is now determined to find his real parents, but gets the unfortunate news that his mom is no longer around. His dad, however, is still around and works in New York. So Buddy takes a journey all the way to New York City and reconnects with his dad. The only unfortunate thing is, his dad doesn't know that he had a son because he never got to see his son. Also, his dad's a jerk. So Buddy tries to change his ways to make him more of a jolly person and also tries to make up for the time that they didn't spend together. Buddy also is introduced to the real world and learns that not everything is so holly jolly like he thought it would be. I didn't mention Buddy was played by Will Ferrell. Buddy's played by Will Ferrell. I like Elf. Again, I watch this film every year. I make it a point to make it one of the last Christmas things that I watch every year around the holidays. I wouldn't say it's my ultra favorite, but it's my favorite, or it's one of my favorites. The thing is with me, whenever I'm asked what my favorite Christmas film is, I will always say, the Santa Claus or Grinch or Elf. Elf will be one of the three, and that's mostly because I find it very entertaining. I find it funny. The gags in this film, they're set up perfectly, just based off of the way that Will Ferrell is portraying this character, so everything makes sense. There are a lot of memorable moments from this film that somewhat make it a holiday classic, but they all come from Buddy's attempt on finding his dad while also interacting with the world around him, which makes sense, seeing that his whole life he grew up in one specific place. I think growing up in the North Pole, surrounded by snow and magical creatures that you really don't see in New York City or basically anywhere else in the world, like a narwhal or talking snowmen. I think the way that certain situations in this film play out, they fit really well with the tone of the film and add a lot of humor to its story. Some of my favorite scenes mostly come from Buddy's time working in the little toy section in the building. I don't want to say it's a mall. I don't know the name of it. Okay, that's cool. Gimbals? I think it's Gimbals. The whole set with him mistakenly being one of the elves that's supposed to be working there, and when Santa comes the next day, well, first off, before that happens, we get that whole montage with him building it up, preparing for Santa to come, and then when Santa actually comes, he considers him a fake because Buddy knows the real Santa, and I just think the whole film's really innocent, it's fun, it's enjoyable. Though me here sitting talking about how much I like it and enjoy it doesn't mean it's the best Christmas film, because it does have its flaws. There are multiple things in this film that I would change in order to make it the perfect Christmas film, which I don't think is ever going to actually be a thing. One thing that I'm not a huge fan of is the setting of the North Pole in this film. Majority of the time the story will depict Santa's workshop as just a wooden building or a little wooden shed or a wooden factory. In this film, we don't get an expanded image on how the outside of the workshop looks, but we do get a look in the inside, and I really thought they could have done a lot better. It's very, blah-ish in there. Apart from maybe a Christmas tree or maybe some Christmas wreaths or one or two decorations, the whole place inside is very dull looking. It's white, it's gray. It's really the elves' costumes and all the toys that are inside of it that bring color into the factory, which I don't think was a very good idea. I think maybe the inside of the workshop should have been more colorful. There should be a lot of Christmas accessories everywhere, at least a Christmas tree in every single corner, seeing that you're dealing with a humongous figure of this holiday. I definitely think maybe if the scenery and the set for the workshop was improved a little by adding a bit more Christmas color to it, more decorations, maybe even something similar to how it looks in the Santa Claus movie trilogy series, how the outside of the North Pole looks, even how the inside looks. I definitely think maybe I would love it 12 times more, only because the story is really good. And with a perfect set that the workshop could have, that would be really cool. I think I might have a little obsession problem. I really like the North Pole setting in the Santa Claus. It's just so magical, it's so big, and it's as if you are literally stepping into a Christmas wonderland. That is how awesome that scenery in that film is. I love it. This is something that I will say about the scenery, though. I like how it's a mix of claymation while also live action. I mean, obviously, the outside scenes of the North Pole, where Buddy's running in the snow, that's obviously on a sound stage. And I really like the whole setup of it. It seems very North Pole and magical and very Christmas-like. And I like the fact that it incorporated some stop-motion characters as well. The snowman in it, named Leon, I'm very sure that is the same snowman from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and if it's not, it looks very similar to it. I kind of like how they mixed traditional Christmas classic specials with a movie that is supposed to make us feel like we're watching a Christmas classic. This is also pretty interesting. I don't exactly remember if I mentioned this in my Rudolph review when I talked about that earlier in the month, but if you watch this film and then you watch Rudolph, you'll notice that the costumes are very similar for the elves, and I mean really similar. In fact, not thinking about it, I'm pretty sure I did in fact talk about it, because I mentioned the head elf. He was wearing the exact same thing that Buddy the Elf was, and it turns out that the costumes for it were inspired by Rudolph, which is pretty cool. So I guess that's a non-official confirmation that they live in the same universe? I'm not sure. Another thing I'm not so big on is the ending of the film, as I felt it was kind of rushed a bit, and also the whole saving Christmas aspect kind of just came out of nowhere. This movie, although telling a really interesting story, has somewhat of a subplot that is talked about in the beginning and not really brought up until the ending of the movie. And it was probably hinted throughout the film, especially with Walter, who's Buddy's dad, being very grumpy and not much in the Christmas spirit. But there's a subplot dealing with Santa's sleigh as it flies on not much of fairy dust or any sort of dust whatsoever to help it fly. Not even the reindeer magic to help it fly, but it mostly flies on Christmas spirit. And near the end of the film, we see as Santa is coming over New York City, coincidentally, where Buddy is, after Buddy got yelled at by Walter because he messed up one of the biggest meetings of his life. Buddy witnesses that Santa and his reindeer go down in Central Park, and that's because the reader that detects Christmas spirit has completely gone down to zero, and it's come to believe that nobody has Christmas spirit anymore. I kind of wish they explained that a little more, because when I think of that, I completely call crap on that whole entire thing. One main aspect that makes Christmas so special and Santa are children. Children are like the main factor when it comes to Christmas. They believe in Santa with their heart. They love this time of year. A lot of people love this time of year, specifically in New York City. Like I said for the sequel of Home Alone, New York City is the one place in the world where you'll probably see the most Christmas stuff ever. Between the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree and Radio City, and the fact that there are decorations almost everywhere, depending on what part of town you're in. The fact that Christmas spirit is not present in one of the world's largest cities ever, I just can't believe that. At that point, Buddy, Walter, and Walter's son Michael end up helping Santa. First off, being very shocked that there is such thing as a Santa Claus, and they do everything they can to help him get back up in the sky and deliver all the gifts to all the children for Christmas. This then has Michael taking Santa's list, which is in the form of a humongous book, which I don't really have that much of a comment on it. And he goes to where there's a newscast going on, where there's a big, huge crowd of people. And that only happens because people cite something that fell from the sky in Central Park, which they, for some reason, send out security for. Yeah, let's just ignore the thing that's in the sky making jingly sounds, flying in the air, and then it just falls. You know, of course that will cause a commotion, but, I mean, it's Christmas Eve, buddy. I get the whole point that in this film, adults are not supposed to believe in Santa Claus. That's the thing with all these films when it comes to adults and Christmas. They just don't have that much Christmas spirit like they did when they were little, but I mean, still. Long story short, Christmas spirit ends up rising when Michael goes to the cameras for this newscast, reveals what everybody wants for Christmas just by looking at the list, and Buddy's girlfriend and then later fiance named Jovi, who's also a very shy singer, ends up singing publicly for the first time. She sings Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and everybody joins in, and that helps Santa fly off into the sky with Buddy. And whoopee, Christmas is saved. I know they needed some way to end the story, because they did end it on a pretty dark note with Walter yelling at Buddy, like severely, angrily yelling. And it hurt Buddy's feelings. He didn't know what to do. This was the point of the film where he got really hard on himself and realized he's a screw-up. He can't do anything right. And out of nowhere, Buddy ends up helping Santa dealing with a problem as everyone is lacking on Christmas spirit, which, I'll say it again, I find absolutely crap because, again, you're in New York City, and there are a lot of people that are always in a Christmas spirit. I understand probably in this film they're depicting it as, you know, nobody's in the spirit, but I don't know, it kind of looks like it. There seem to be a good amount of people that are in the spirit. That's just kind of like a little nitpick I have about the ending. It's just there. Personally, for me, I feel like it just kind of comes out of nowhere, but you could disagree with me, which is fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. But that little nitpick doesn't stop me from not enjoying this film. I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. I really like Elf. I always laugh when I watch it. It's just a fun time when I see Buddy running around New York City screaming his brains out. I definitely think you should give Elf a try if you have not seen it yet. It is a classic. Some people may find it cheesy. Maybe you'll feel the same way I do about the ending, but if you haven't seen it before and you want a good laugh, you want to see Will Ferrell in a elf costume for basically the whole entire film and him running around New York City like he's never been there before, I definitely think you would enjoy this film. Although they may have not done a sequel or any remakes of it, I do know that a few years ago, I believe either 2 or 3 years ago, they did a stop-motion Buddy the Elf television special, which I watched. It was supposed to be like a 30-minute television special based off of Elf, kind of telling the same story again. This one had Jim Parsons, who plays Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory. He was doing the voice for Buddy the Elf. And Jim Parsons can sing. I just much rather prefer the original Elf. Not that that one was necessarily bad, it was just, no thank you. And with that said, that's all I got for Elf. That's all I have to say about one of my favorite Christmas films. Bottom line, I enjoy it. I love it. It's a classic for me. And now I want to know what you think about Elf. Do you enjoy watching Elf? Do you not enjoy watching Elf? What is your opinion on it? Do you agree or disagree with anything that I said in this video? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. That's it for day 24, Christmas Eve of 25 Wild Christmas Review Days. Tomorrow's it, folks. Tomorrow's the last day of this project. I got a pretty special one lined up for tomorrow. I mean, it's not going to be special as in I'm doing something different. I'm doing the same thing I've been doing for the last 24 days now. But tomorrow's topic is going to be a very interesting one because I go a little deep in it and I try to understand it a little because it's slowly become one of those films that has become so popular that it makes me ask the question, why is it popular? I cover that question and do a lot more talking about this film tomorrow. What film is it? Well, you'll have to come back tomorrow and find out.